June 8, 1793. Lindisfarne Island. Ships with dragon heads emerge from the fog. Vikings storm the defenseless monastery. An Anglo-Saxon chronicler writes, "Never before has Britain seen such terror. Pagans spilled the blood of saints at the altar and trampled the bodies of monks like dung in the street. This attack marked the beginning of the Viking Age." Vikings weren't a people, they were a profession. Going Viking meant heading out for summer raids and plunder. In the 8th century, Scandinavia was a patchwork of petty kings and endless feuds. Land was scarce, ambitions were high. After Norway's unification, many chose exile over submission to King Harald. They sailed west to seek their fortune. Their secret weapon? The ships. Longships, Drakkars, with shallow drafts that could navigate seas, rivers, and even be dragged over land. They hit 15 knots and crossed the North Sea in a week. Vikings had unlocked every coastline in Europe. Late 8th century Europe practically invited them in. After Charlemagne's empire fractured, Francia's coasts were poorly defended. Britain's kingdoms were too busy fighting each other to watch the shores. The richest targets? Monasteries, gold, silver, relics, unarmed monks. Lindisfarne was perfect, an isolated island packed with treasure. For the Northmen, this wasn't sacrilege. It was a business plan. Hit fast, grab the loot, vanish, and it worked brilliantly. The following decades became the Age of Terror. Drakkars appeared at dawn, struck, and disappeared before anyone could mobilize. 795 Iona Monastery attacked. 799. The Frankish coast hit. One Dublin founded. What started as a raiders' camp grew into a thriving port city with a mint. H85. The legendary Ragnar Lothbrok sailed 120 ships up the Seine and besieged Paris. The emperor paid a massive silver ransom to make them leave. The precedent was set: raid and get paid twice. Francia's rivers became Viking highways. Kings chose to pay tribute or set one warband against another. 865, the Great Heathen Army landed on England's east coast. Hundreds of ships, thousands of warriors. The leaders, Ragnar's sons, Ivar the Boneless, Halfdan, and Ubba. They captured York, renamed it Jorvik. East Anglia fell, Mercia fell. By the 1870s, Scandinavians controlled 3/4 of England, everything except Wessex, where young King Alfred ruled. 871, Danish King Guthrum invaded Wessex. Alfred paid silver, buying time. 878, the Danes caught him off guard. The king fled into the marshes. All winter he hid. Come spring, he struck back. The Battle of Edington, a decisive victory. The treaty, Vikings left Wessex, converted to Christianity, but kept vast lands in the north and east. The Danelaw, the land of Danish law, was born. Alfred the Great earned his title. He built a fleet fast enough to catch Drakkars. He divided the army into rotating shifts. He covered the country with fortified burhs, where people could shelter during raids. The old Viking tactics stopped working. By 1927, Alfred's grandson, Athelstan, conquered the last Scandinavian stronghold and declared himself king of all the English. The irony, Viking invasions forced the Anglo-Saxons to unite. But the story wasn't over. 1013, Danish king Sweyn Forkbeard landed in England, not to raid, but to conquer. King Ethelred the Unready fled. Sweyn was proclaimed king. He ruled for weeks before dying, but his son, Cnut the Great, continued. This young Viking became king of 3 countries: England in 1016, Denmark in 1019, and Norway in 1028. A Viking on the English throne, minting coins with his name, one of Europe's most powerful monarchs. Francia. 1886, Vikings under Rollo besieged Paris for nearly a year. The city held, but Emperor Charles the Fat paid them off. 911, Charles the Simple met with the Norman warlord Rollo near Chartres. The deal: Rollo's army stops raiding and becomes the king's vassal. In return, they get vast lands along the Seine. The Duchy of Normandy, land of the Northmen, was born. Pagan Rollo was baptized, took the name Robert, became a duke. Within one generation, the Viking invaders assimilated. Their descendants spoke French, practiced Christianity, ruled by feudal law. Raiders became statesmen. 150 years later, Rollo's great-great-grandson William the Conqueror would claim the English throne and go to war. Swedish adventurers pushed through the Finnish Gulf into Slavic lands, where they were called Varangians or Rus. 862 Novgorod Slavs invited Varangian Prince Rurik. Our land is vast and rich, but there is no order. Rurik founded the Rurikid dynasty. 1882, his ally Oleg seized Kiev, declaring, "Let Kiev be the mother of Rus cities." The core of Kievan Rus was born. Varangian warriors serving as a military caste over a Slavic population. The Dnieper River opened the route from Varangians to Greeks, Baltic to Black Sea. Rus boats carried furs, honey, wax, and slaves. Yes, slave trade was key. Slavic captives sold to the Khazar Khaganate, to the cities of the Caliphate, paid in silver. Arab coin hoards are found across Scandinavia. 1907, Prince Oleg campaigned against Constantinople. Legend says Oleg nailed his shield to the city gates. Byzantium agreed to pay tribute and grant duty-free trade. Rus became a formidable partner. 198, Vladimir Sviatoslavich converted to Christianity, married a Byzantine princess, made Christianity Kiev's religion. Thousands of Northmen went south as military professionals. The legendary Varangian Guard was born, the Byzantine emperor's personal bodyguard. Prince Vladimir sent 6,000 best men as a gift to Emperor Basil II. Among them served Harald Hardrada, future king of Norway. Varangian guards, giants from the north in armor, wielding massive axes. When Scandinavia grew crowded, seafarers turned to the North Atlantic. 874, Norwegian Ingolfur Arnarsson landed in Reykjavik Bay, founding Iceland's settlement. A unique colonization, an uninhabited land. A free society emerged with no kings. Disputes settled at the Althing Assembly. 982, Eric the Red, exiled from Iceland for murder, sailed west and discovered new shores. The cunning bastard named the harsh land Greenland to attract settlers. It worked. Dozens of families founded colonies. The settlements lasted nearly 500 years before vanishing by the late Middle Ages. Around 1000 AD, 5 centuries before Columbus, Eric's son Leif Erikson sailed even further west. His Drakkar reached the shores of North America. The Norsemen were amazed. Strange beasts, abundant salmon, wild grapes. Leif named it Vinland, land of archaeological fact. Remains of an 11th century Scandinavian settlement found in Newfoundland, Canada, dating around 1021 AD, established by tree rings. Found artifacts, iron nails, a bronze pin, clearly Norse. Vikings were the first Europeans to set foot in North America. The settlers encountered indigenous peoples, they called them Skraelings, fought, and eventually withdrew. Vinland expeditions continued for years, but permanent settlement failed. The discovery of the New World was forgotten for centuries. Only 20th century excavations confirmed the saga was true. The 11th century was the Viking Age's climax and its end. 1066 changed Europe's face. Norway's king was Harald III Hardrada, Harald the Hard Ruler. Legendary biography. Fled Norway, served as a Varangian mercenary, made fortune in Byzantine service, returned, seized the throne. Tall, strong, battle-hardened. Fall 1066, he gathered an army and landed in northern England. The last Viking raid began, September 25, 1066, Battle of Stamford Bridge. One berserker held the bridge alone, cutting down Englishmen with his axe, until someone speared him from below through the planks. Harald Hardrada fought without armor and fell from an arrow to the throat. Of over 300 Drakkars, only about 20 returned home. The end of the Viking Age. The last great kings fell. But history loves irony. 3 weeks later, English King Harold was crushed at Hastings by another contender, Norman Duke William. William the Conqueror, descendant of Rollo, led a Norman army, French-speaking descendants of Vikings, and conquered England. So England did fall to the Northmen, just Vikings coming from a different direction, disguised as Normans. 1066 marks the end of the Viking Age. No warlord could overturn nations anymore. Northern kings learned to play by European rules, and Europe stopped being a helpless victim. The Viking Age lasted 300 years but left an indelible mark. England's bloodlines mixed Scandinavian, Anglo-Saxon, and Norman. The English language absorbed thousands of Norse words: husband, sky, egg. France gained Normandy. Eastern Europe saw the rise of Rus under the Rurikid dynasty. Even the name Russia traces back to the Finnish word ruotsi, Swedes. Thanks to the Varangians, Byzantium got loyal bodyguards. Europe got trade routes to the east. Iceland became the era's first republic. The Viking image: crazed bearded giants with axes. Reality: Vikings were diverse. Yes, they brought terror, but thousands lived peacefully, farming, trading, settling new lands. Chronicles ignore peaceful farmers but jump at monastery massacres. About slavery: pop culture's Viking, noble warrior of freedom. Dark reality: Vikings were slavers who saw people as loot like silver. Capturing prisoners was the main goal of many raids. Dublin had a major slave market. In the east, slave trade became the economic foundation. Accumulated slaves fueled their rise and financed their conquests. The biggest stereotype: Vikings did not have horned helmets. No archaeological find has confirmed horns on battle helmets. Horns in combat: a liability, easy to grab. Where did the image come from? In the 1870s, costume designer Carl Doppler added horns to helmets for Wagner's opera for dramatic effect. The image stuck. Illustrators and cinema ran with it. Some myths Vikings created themselves. Legends of berserkers, warriors who felt no pain in battle fury. Tales of shield maidens, female warriors. In 2017, genetic analysis of remains from Burka confirmed a woman buried with full warrior gear: sword, axe, spears, arrows. Perhaps the fierce wood. The pagan pirates entered history's mainstream. Scandinavian kingdoms became Christian monarchies. Viking descendants went on crusades, founded cities, mixed with other peoples. Europe once trembled at the word Northmen. Later, it took pride in Norman kings. Vikings changed the world through deeds, not myths. They burned the old order and forged new maps of nations. They were Europe's last pagan conquerors, and the first Europeans to reach America. They left behind dynasties, cities, and legends. The Viking Age is a story of transformation, from monastery raiders to empire builders, from Northmen in longships to kings on thrones, from pagans with axes to knights with crosses, and in each of us lives a drop of Viking, the seeker, the raider, the discoverer.